In South Africa, the reality of pricing your product is you take what you can afford to take. Don't tell me what 20% on top of the expenses create the thing. Sometimes when I look at my reality and they're offering me, let's say 2K, right? Let's say my price was 2K. If they're offering me 2,000 and my reality requires 500 Rand right now, but the industry rate is 10K, the 2K makes all the sense for me and where I'm at right now. So when it comes to pricing, always price for where you are. Don't price according to the industry standard. There's no industry standard. There's an ego standard. The ego of that, we rent an office. The ego of that, we have so many people on staff. The ego of that, my assistant had to communicate with you guys on email. The ego of that, my manager had to take a percent of everything that's happening. So price according to where you at. I think that's the simplest way to deal with pricing. Because sometimes a bag is not big enough or a bag is not your standard, but that bag can get you, goddamn, those new Nikes you wanted. If it's going to pay for the Nikes and to use just an hour of work, do it. Do it. There is truth in having a precedent. There is truth in having a standard price. There is truth into having a rate card, but that truth only belongs to you. You can't be taking advice from people who have 2 cars, who live in their own nice house, and you still trying to afford rent next month. And also the 90-day rule is making people broke. So take what works right now. If you know you have your 200K that's going to reflect in 60 days, it's okay to take that 5K this week because it's getting you closer to that 200K you're waiting for. So just price within your reality. Don't price according to what your OG said.
From Cnr Juta De Beer, formerly known as Lwazi Madonsela, bringing you a show about creative entrepreneurs live from the landmark that not only birth SA street culture but also formalize the street hustle.
101 episodes later, Cnr Juta De Beer special edition umsindisi wesiko umvelisi Nqange him yena yedwa umphathi wale golide lizwa nge-podcast. Thank you for joining us. We've been offline for damn near 6 months. We've changed the game for almost 3 years, chasing 3 years in October this year. Thank you to everyone who came to Corner Turns 2. If you missed episode 100, it's like the iPhone 9. It's an industry secret. Shout out to Frypan for helping us with that. Shout out to everyone who's involved with that. Today I have a special guest, the one, the only. I brought him for episode 101. I'll put my list, I'll put on my podcast. It's just a brilliant dude, a brilliant creative who's done everything from talking about sneakers to writing about them, worked in the music game, worked in the creative game, but now is running the biggest podcast. Why have you been offline for so long? Well, I'd like to start this off saying, firstly, Nyabonga, thank you for the platform. Humble. 2, shout out to the people who listen, the people who celebrate, the people who create. Fans. Shout out to everyone who's been on this journey with us since late 2022. Shout out to everyone who's been on the platform with us from mid-2022. For me, the platform has been one to uphold, one to celebrate, one to platform, one to grow, one to connect. So to make it this far is also like insane. We're going into year 3. So shout out to everyone on Cnr Juta De Beer. Shout out to all the cyber creators, the corner creators, corner office creators, corner of your mind creators. Shout out to the laptop CEOs. That's a new thing, by the way. That's what we're gonna call soon. So if they steal it, we're gonna come back to this very moment and point. Shout out to the laptop CEOs. And then secondarily to that, to answer your question, why we've been offline for so long. We've been offline for so long because if you do anything 100 times, you kind of get fatigued. It's like if we had to count from 1 to 100 now, you get tired. 2, you do something 100 times, you try to figure new ways to do it, which we've done. We've had episodes that were 2 hours. We've had episodes that were 2 minutes, right? With everything that we've done, I've always tried to refine and do what I do better. But most importantly, I'm grateful for this very moment to do it on my own terms. Yeah, more than anything. Because at some stage, we were in partnership. At some stage, we had no studio. At some stage, we had no mic. At some stage, we had no camera. At some stage, we had to sell the camera. At some stage, we had bad equipment. At some stage, we didn't have a sound engineer. At some stage, there was something we didn't have. But for the first time in a long time, I think I'm in control of the vision, even economically. Right? Because we're at a point where we have our own facilities, we have our own equipment, we can record when we want to record. We're not hell-bent or the check is not dictating anything. Yeah. If That's the best way to put it. If I feel like recording an episode, I can record an episode and put it out. So grateful for that. We've been offline for so long because after 100, I thought I was done with Cnr Juta De Beer. If I'm being honest and vulnerable, it's gotten to a point where I was like, okay, cool, man. There's no other way to skin the cow. I think if you've heard one story, you've heard the other. But one thing I didn't realize is that through every episode, I've learned a new way to relay my understanding of the guest perspective. Sure. So therefore, 100 guests is not the end of conversation. 100 guests is just 100 attempts at me trying to tell the creative story better. So I would say that's what has kept us offline. Me understanding where I am. Because I think every creator gets to that point where you're like, so like, also, when are we getting 1 million views? Those are as much as we go into it with like, it's pure, it's honest, it's for the people. At some stage now, I pay with it's going to lay the million views, shiny. Like, when am I blowing up? But our goals also determine our survival, which also determines how far we go. Because if we want to tell creative stories, if we want to end up on textbooks, then 1 million views is not the reach. It's 1 million copies of a book sold. With that being said, something coming soon. Yeah. Damn, if the goal is textbooks, that means the goal is higher education, which means the goal is bigger things. I guess all of this time we thought you were competing for views and guests. But what's the honest truth about the money in this game? Well, how's the money working? Hey, Parker watching, talk. It's a tough question you're asking because what's the truth about the money in podcasting? Well, firstly, there's a lot of pain and then there's money. The pain in that you're like, we're going to do this, then it's going to catch on, then we get paid, then it's a good day. I think the price we charged for our first partner, shout out to my way, bling, 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 bling. They came through with that one. I think what we charged my way for 10 episodes is now what we charge for 2 episodes, right? And that's 2 years later. But at that time, when it came in, it was like, whoa, someone believes in this vision. And they came to us and asked us our price, which, strange enough, most companies don't do that. They don't honor your price. They want to say, this is how much we have. But with them, the relationship is beautiful. They're like, hey, how much would you charge? How do we tell our story with Cnr Juta De Beer? And then for me at that moment, it's like, okay, cool. Is it fair to the guest that we have a sponsor, but they're not getting paid? But then I was like, yeah, but if My Way is paying us, that means they're going to amplify the episode. That means there's going to be more reach, which means the guest is in turn getting paid with not just the platform, but a chance for their voice to be amplified through a well-renowned company. Now it's called Blink by My Way. So over time, things do change, but over time, things stay the same. So the truth about this business is that you can only get paid if you don't get paid. Okay. You're going to have amazing partners who ask you your price, pay you before project. You're going to have amazing partners who say they have a 90-day rule. They still comply. They still want to pay your fee. And then you're going to have partners who want a strong army. Tell you the truth, some of these international companies will traumatize you because you'll be like, yo, you guys are the guys. You guys run this thing we on. You know what our value is. So you of all people should be taking care of us. Because when we're talking to a My Way, we're talking to an insurance. When we're talking to a Samsung, we're talking about people create devices. But you in this industry, you backing people with millions overseas and then you coming with a different vibe. So I think there's more money outside of the industry you're in. For any creator who does anything, over time you realize that if you're a clothing designer, you won't get paid the most by another clothing brand. You're going to be paid more by an NGO that's trying to amplify sustainability. So with everything that you do, always look outside of your reach and your region. Because if I'm a music producer, artists won't pay me my beat price, but Absa will pay more to use my beat as a soundtrack for all their TVCs. So invest in knowing more. Invest in knowing outside of your comfort reach. I think that's where you get to a better place in this money game. And also, Sim said something so important. I didn't know how to put in words, but I've always had this thinking. that creativity is a seasonal industry, but the business is consistent.
Okay.
Because creativity, there's a spark where you're like, yo, this is a great idea, this is a great campaign, everything aligns with me. But the business sometimes requires you to go shoot something for government. And you're like, I don't know anything about government. I just want to do cool things. And sometimes the cool thing is just doing the coverage and meeting the mandate that's required of you. So if you can focus on the business side of it, that's the only way you'll maintain the creative side of it, because not every brief aligns to your goals. Yeah, but the guys who will pay you the best are always the ones who expect you to present yourself, not the ones who dictate how to be yourself. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. Man, you seem very knowledgeable. It seems like you're living up to your name, Lwazi. There's a couple of things you know, but are you like a reader? What is it that you're consuming to get to this current mindset you on? Because there's clearly a way of thinking that's informed by a way of living. The answer's simple. What you consume is who you become. So you remember when your mom, your gran, whoever was there as your guardian said, eat your veggies. That's what life is. If you eat the stuff that you need to eat, it's easier to enjoy McDonald's. So if you eat all your veggies, which means understand what's happening in the social climate, what's happening on the news, what's happening with the economy, what's selling, what's not selling, what's moving, what's not moving, it's easier for you to then create what enhances that. If the main problem now in Joburg is that people are not finding good restaurants to eat at, but they all look aesthetically pleasing, then you go find a restaurant that sells good food and you bring the aesthetics. I know it's a far reach, but if Cnr Juta De Beer is your favorite podcast, but you don't like how it's shot, you hit up Cnr Juta De Beer and you be like, yo, we have this equipment, this studio, this is the layout we're trying to do. How can we partner? So what you consume will then be, what are you reading? I'm not much of a reader. I'm a listener. So audiobooks, watching other people's podcasts, listening to other people's podcasts. I think by far my favorite podcast of all time is still Crime Town. And that was a Gimlet production. And that was like the sound design. Everything was just ridiculous. But it was going into the psyche of what actually creates a city to be crime ridden. And when you start understanding how the mind works and how things play out, it's easier to then reverse the idea for yourself. Because for me, it's like, if we want to get paid off a podcast, the first thing is like, who do we want to pay us? And then when we step back a bit more, okay, cool, if we want TFG to pay us, who's the biggest TFG brand? Redbat. If Redbat is who we want to attract, then we have to attract Redbat's consumer. Redbat's consumers, particularly varsity students and late high school kids. So then we have to create content for those kids who are late in high school and early varsity. After doing that, now you've had the whole game. Okay, cool. They like YouTube. They like funny stuff. Then we create a funny podcast that still touches on fashion, funny outfits. That's what we'd call it. So just always reverse analyzing everything that happens in the game then allows you to also take on the game a bit easier, with more ease and more understanding. Yeah, the game truly does feel like a game sometimes, because like there's a lot of confusion and misinterpretation of what you're trying to do, even when you're pitching. But looking back at the people who supported you, what would you say is something you're proud of? What are you proud of? Of all the things I've done, what I'm proud of is that we're still a platform that educates. A friend of mine, Timbilike, replied on my stories like, this is a marketer's dream. Your podcast, you should be charging people to watch it, because it has everything, every hurdle you have trying to be a marketer. Someone has experienced it and they've related on the podcast. And that for me is like, I still pride on myself on being a platform that you're not taking away, course, yo, what happened to this person and that person. Our takeaway is always, I learned that Sibu Mapena started off as a dancer, worked their way into Fill Up the Dome, moved from Fill Up the Dome, went into eventing, from eventing turned into an agency, from an agency turned into a marketer, from a marketer event production, social media amplification. So the mere fact that there's now a timeline, a mind map of how you can tackle things, how Masonwabe was making illustrations, turned those illustrations to t-shirts, turned that into rugs, from the rugs made artworks. Now it's a full circle moment. There's a rug that looks like the net. So if you're a collector from 2022, you can have the 2025 thing. That's the same thing as your 2022, but in a different medium. And it's like there's so much learning there is in this creative scene. And if you don't allow yourself to do that, and if we continue to be a platform to educate, there's more creators that will come out of it. Yeah, that's what I'm proud of. Crazy. Speaking of having more creators, what's your outlook on the creative scene in South Africa? Because we're seeing the parties, we're seeing the new models, we're seeing the new podcasts, we're seeing different types of influencing. But when you look at the game, what's your outlook? What's happening right now? Voting by age. They're gonna say I'm trying to be controversial, and
Okay.
but moral of the story, the creative scene is regressing. There's no growth anymore. Like there's literally no growth in the creative scene in South Africa, globally as well. There's no new ideas. Your favorite Walls Bone was a reference with a 1980s thing. The styling is a reference to the 2000s. This is a reference to this. But I guess that's where technology is just in general. The iPhone can't go faster. The screen can't look better. The design can't get better. I think we're regressing as a creative culture, creative business, creative scene. We're not growing, but the upside is that now the purists are being celebrated because there's so many hybrid versions of everything. Like you go to this party, it's also color themed. You go to this party, it's also genre themed. You go to this party, it's also at that venue. You go to this party, they drink this beverage, then this beverage is sponsored by this beverage. You listen to this podcast, and they had that guest from that podcast. Now they black and white. Now they split screen. Now they this. We are regressing as a culture, and the only thing that can save us is if the purists rise, if the real designers start designing. I think that's where we at right now, because there's no new way to make a t-shirt. There's just a quality thing, but I think a lot of companies have figured out how to make a quality t-shirt. Besides a quality t-shirt, a lot of people have figured out how to download design elements and then mash up and then make a great t-shirt. But for the scene to grow, we need the purists to come back. We need those people who are going to say, no, cut that t-shirt in half, blend it with the other t-shirt, then tie-dye it, then do this, then do that. We need the people who are odd to come back. I don't want to say crazy because it might be offensive, but we need people who are looking at the game and saying, nah, fagi 808. Like when TRP added the 808, and then everyone was like, that's it. That's our new genre. That's Amapiano. We need the crazies to come back in the front line. The creative scene has become too conservative. Bring back the crazy creatives. Bring back all the people who said, let's go left when all the road signs were showing us right. Bring back, I'm going to call them wrong turn creatives, because South Africa right now is at an all-time regression, because the same people who were popular 10 years ago are still popular. The same people who were running parties 10 years ago are still running parties. And there's been companies that have evolved, like Until went from, you're going to host the greatest parties, to them being like one of the biggest event experience agencies. And you're like, oh shit, there is growth. So where to Xavier Zulu, our OGs must go. But nonetheless, we have a lot to learn from the OGs. Yeah, I think that's my current outlook on the game. Speaking of learning from the OGs, what would you say you've learned? Because right now it's coming off as a bit edgy, where it's like the people are not creating something new, the people are not changing the game. What would you say that you've learned with your couple of years? I've learned a lot. I think I have PTSD. I have post creative disorder. Yeah, PCD. That's what I'm coining it. I think I have PCDs. Like, one, you learn that no matter how good you are, doesn't matter. Two, no matter how consistent you do it, it doesn't matter. Why you're doing it matters the most.
Sure.
So once you understand your why, are you trying to make money? Are you trying to be cool? Are you trying to be relevant? Are you trying to have access? Once you figure out your why, life is pretty simple. Because why are we recording a me versus me? Because for the first time, there's a worthy person to interview me. Was that a crazy thing to say?
Sure.
Is that an outlandish thing to say? So for me, it's, talk your talk, man. Talk your talk. And when you're talking your talk, how do we do pricing? How do we charge for this outlandish voice? Sfunama coins. Okay. No, it's Funama coins. Like, Sifuna
Angakanani?
ama-coins, sifuna ama-coins. Sifuna ama-coins, sifuna ama-coins. Uh, Funny enough, if you listen to almost every Ricky Rick song outside of the album, I'd say listen to the singles and features outside of the first album, I think you'll hear a man who's frustrated by the creative scene just from peer group, pricing, expectation. The boss man say I'm not drinking the product. Fuck it. He said something like on Silikotin, like it was the problem he had at Edward Snell. They were like he's not consuming enough Russian beer, but then he fixed that relationship with Russian beer, got the units moving, and then fast forward a few years later, he's doing Remy Martin, which is still Edward Snell, and it's like there's a growth point. Russian Bear Ricky Rick and Remy Martin Ricky Rick, two different guys, but still a very powerful guy nonetheless. But pricing, the game is simple, dog. You take what you can afford to take. I think that's what pricing is. Everyone's always going to tell you, measure the industry rates, then charge 20% for service fee. That's not the reality in South Africa. In South Africa, the reality of pricing your product is you take what you can afford to take. Don't tell me what 20% on top of the expenses create the thing. Sometimes when I look at my reality and they're offering me, let's say 2K, right? Let's say my price was 2K. If they're offering me 2,000 and my reality requires 500 Rand right now, but the industry rate is 10K, the 2K makes all the sense for me and where I'm at right now. So when it comes to pricing, always price for where you are. Don't price according to the industry standard. There's no industry standard. There's an ego standard. The ego of that we rent an office. The ego of that we have so many people on staff. The ego of that my assistant had to communicate with you guys on email. The ego of that my manager had to take a percent of everything that's happening. So price according to where you at. I think that's the simplest way to deal with pricing. Because sometimes a bag is not big enough or a bag is not your standard, but that bag can get you, goddamn, those new Nikes you wanted. If it's gonna pay for the Nikes and to use just an hour of work, do it. Do it. There is truth in having a precedent. There is truth in having a standard price. There is truth into having a rate card, but that truth only belongs to you. You can't be taking advice from people who have 2 cars, who live in their own nice house, and you still trying to afford rent next month. And also the 90-day rule is making people broke. So take what works right now. If you know you have your 200K that's going to reflect in 60 days, it's okay to take that 5K this week because it's getting you closer to that 200K you're waiting for. So just price within your reality. Don't price according to what your OG said. Nah, boy, they took little money at the beginning. And the ones who didn't take any money, it's because their families could afford for them not to take any money, dog. Your reality is your reality. No, in Ramaphosa's economy, it's rainfall in Durban. Rainfall in Durban. But is everything still worth doing? Because you have the trauma now, the post-creative disorder. Is it still worth doing? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. There's a new creative who's hot every day. Every day there's a nigga who's doing something better. Every single day. Every day there's someone who watched this podcast said I'm gonna make a better one. So there's always someone to interview. There's always something new to relay. There's more knowledge because the information we got at the beginning of the podcast in 2022, some of it is irrelevant in 2025 when you can make a storyboard using ChatGPT. You can write the whole thing and illustrate it now on ChatGPT. So the problems we're facing now in terms of pricing, in terms of understanding how to infuse AI to help our work get better, you know? So I'd say, yeah, still worth doing. It's still worth doing. How do you then measure the impact of your work? Because some people would say impact is 1 million views. Some people would say impact is a live event. Some people say impact is how many brands you collab with. How do you measure that thing for you? This is always a funny question because what is impact, right? What's impact? How do you measure impact? It's like the idea of thinking I'm hot, but what if I'm only hot in my mama crib? What if I'm only hot on YouTube? What if I'm only hot to my 5 friends? You know? So it's there, but realistically, impact of your work is just you being able to reflect. There's a friend of mine, Debo, who had a song. The first song he ever made was Jada, he's the best. And then you listen to the stuff he makes now. It's like, that's impact. Impact is how far you've grown. Impact can't be social media stats. Impact can't be what what's trending right now. Maybe you making Kwaito and people want to listen to Afro Tech, but the impact is that you've gotten way better in your process. So it's just that you've taken your first idea and you've added inflation of it, and that's what's made you the greatest version of yourself. So the impact of your work is truly determined by how far you've grown in your skill. Mm. How far you've grown in your skill. You did a couple of events in the past, two in partnership, and then you did two independently. But the biggest thing about it is that you do live shows. What's the experience with live shows been like for you as a creator, been like for you as a business? My heart breaks when you talk about live shows. Like, they're expensive. They are very expensive on the human yourself. You're like, did we roll out enough? Did the tickets sell enough? Then South Africa being South Africa, everyone's gonna buy the ticket the last week. And it's like now you weighing with this 100,000 we've invested in man hours. Should we just invest 40K in physical money? Because now it seems like not a lot of people are coming, but now someone is coming with someone. Now the turnout is great. Now it looks great on video, but then you like, it's heartbreaking because you can't fully predetermine how far and how many people are on a attend your thing. I think the beauty of live shows is that also you get to work with different people, you get to work with different teams, you also get to get challenged on your leadership skills, just in general. Like, how can you handle this situation? Because situations will put a toll on you. Like, as much as you love someone or you love the working relationship, sometimes when it gets hot, we don't know how to address things. Sometimes when we're not getting the money we thought we were going to get going into this, we don't get the money, and then now there's a sense of frustration. But for me, live shows have been a beautiful opportunity to meet a lot of people I've come to work with, a lot of people who've been on the podcast, because the only thing that was missing is us to meet in person. And when we met, something sparked. When we met, business happened. When we met, we became friends. So live shows are great. The human experience is great. It's a toll on you, but like everything else in life, you get what you give. Even if you give your best and you get the worst, that was the best worst version you'll ever get. So at least you know when you go next time, it gets better. The first live show was out of my pocket, out of the team's willingness. Second live show, still out of the team's willingness, but for the first time, we had someone else to cover majority of the cost. So shout out to Partners Against Piracy. Shout out to Thousand Pounder. That changed everything because the first one was insane. Also, we had the billboard. So the Kawi team, Mum Thug, and the main man, Young Mazo, and Big AV, those are people who are very instrumental, still instrumental to this day, where it's like, okay, cool. I think we've grown as people. And sometimes some relationships don't happen consecutively. So you'll get the chance again in the future to work with the same people. And now you're coming back with more experience, more mature. Real life doesn't die. It comes back full circle. Yeah. Partnerships. Oh, you're asking the questions.
That's what we need to talk about. That's what we need to talk about.
This guy.
Human experience, I hear you.
Okay, cool. Since you forcing our hand, what's your relationship like with partners? Because we've seen a lot of partnerships for the podcast and for you personally. So how's that been for you? Partnerships are great. Let's do it like this. Let me explain partnerships. But before I explain partnerships, shout out to My Way Blink, aka Blink by My Way. No, it's FKA because now they've changed, right? Shout out to Spotify. Shout out to Yoko baby. Shout out to Momentum. Shout out to Johnny Walker. Shout out to Thousand Pounder. Shout out to Partners Against Piracy. Shout out to Jägermeister. Effie, I see you, baby. Shout out to who? We've had so many partners. Shout out to Nike. How could I forget the big swoosh? Yo, shout out Bing Du, shout out Zama, shout out Monde. We made that possible. Shout out to Miss Masego for giving the green flag. Shout out Nandi Jepu. Shout out so many brands that we've partnered with to get to this point that we're at right now.
Shout out Samsung.
Shout out to them for believing that we can do. Shout out Sibu Mapena at Duma Collective. Baby, you guys have been so good. So good. Shout out to every agency we've worked with through shout out O25. Shout out Daisies. I think I might have to open like a pitch deck and just be sure that I mention all the partners. But I don't think I forgot anyone. Shout out to the big aha, yo, Archive Sahu. Back in your days, man, with AP, shout out to that. You came through. But Note to Self by J. Cole. We don't have the rights, but I wish we could play Note to Self by J. Cole right now and just place the sounds. I'm gonna talk to the engineer and place like some music here, right here in this moment, if he agrees. You never know. But shout out to all the partners. Shout out to everyone who's helped us grow. Shout out to everyone who still believes in the mission. Partnerships are simple. Game if you understand Zulu, shout out to you. Game to put it in English, the game likes no one. The game has no preference. You just gotta be hot enough that you're undeniable. Like, I remember there was a campaign happening in Bram, and we were not part of the thing. Like, we weren't. Like, they called us literally 2 weeks before the event. They're like, "Oh, we heard we're supposed to work with you guys." And we got the last lot with no promo, no marketing. Our people pulled through. Shout out to the people pulled through. But in that, I saw, no, we're too hot. We're too hot now, because it's like, we were going to do this event. We didn't plan you guys last year when we were pitching and doing everything. But you guys are hot enough for us to have no choice but to add you to this thing we're doing. So shout out to us, shout out to the partners, shout out to the people who see that we worth the partnerships, shout out to the people who want to take this risk with us, shout out to the people who believe in the young creatives. And a lot of, man, I gotta do a part 2. I'm happy, I'm OG win. Angiko happy. Shout out to the people who didn't traumatize us. Shout out to the people who spoke good of us. Shout out to everyone who did good. You know what? Shout out to the OGs who said they're not good for it, actually. Shout out to you guys, because you know why? Sure. You reminded us that everything is not going to come easy. You reminded us that not everyone is wishing us well. You know that chat you have with your mother as a kid? They're like, not everyone wants the best for you. I want the best for you, but the world is cruel. You guys reminded us of that, and it's so important to remember the world is cruel. The world is not a good place, and your OGs don't got G's. That thing broke my heart. I think if there's anything that broke my heart in Johannesburg, is seeing the fly cribs and the fly whips. And then you found out that it's the other OGs things. And you're like, no, that one had the help from that one. No, that one is driving their father's car. That one is like, and it's like, God damn, man. I thought there was like money in Joburg. I thought all these things were possible. I thought like once we on forever. And then you get to Jaws and then like Bruiser like, yeah, let's build. Like, how are we building with no budget? How are we building with no prospects? Like in Shy, buy me lunch. Like, yo, Poison, I need you for 1, 2, 3. Realistically, this is how much I have. But this is where else I can position you. This is what we can do. Like flirt with me, man. Don't just do something. Just show me it's possible. I think there's something Mash once mentioned is like we don't have enough heroes. Like we are not seeing enough people in Johannesburg living the life we always thought they're living. Not because we poker watching, but just in the sense of that. I thought when you like a creative who's like on TV or who's doing crazy ad campaigns, it would show in your personal life as well. Like I think one of the few people I've seen, like I'm like, yeah, these guys are living his TV. I have to call them with the other names, Voprampo. So Voprampo by Pela, Vopra Ino, it's when you see that, that it's actually possible to earn it at that level, to do it right. So I just wish more of our OGs had G's. Yeah, if I had to sum it up. Yeah, I just wish more of our OGs had G's. Yeah, like G's. Hey, bad boy. What's your word to the youth? You always ask everyone, what's your word to the youth? Put us on, man. We know you're young, but tell us. Hey, this is a long episode. I didn't think I'd get the spotlight like this. My word to the youth. Banamang. Lonster said it. Back. They're lying. You can't do this. You can do all of it. You might not have the budget at the beginning. They lying. They also have the budget in the office. If they tell you they don't have budget, that means they don't want to work with you. Any company that wants to work with you will tell you, yo, if your fee is 1,000, us, we have 300 right now. But if you need the 1,000, there's a way around. We can give you product with the other 700 missing. That way you are still getting to your 1,000. Anyone who wants to work with you makes room to work with you. They don't come to you and say, this is the only money we have, and that's it. Those are not people trying to work with you. They did a checklist of 10 people. Like, let's see who bites the lowest price. So don't allow yourself to fall victim to that once you can afford to not fall victim to it. Because as I said at the beginning of the show, my brother, you price according to your reality, not the industry. So if your reality right now says, you know what, I can do without a check for the next 2 months, do without it. Do without it. If you feel like you're being underpaid, don't do it. Because tomorrow you're going to be on Twitter crying to us. And us, all we can do is repose, my brother. We don't have the lawyer capabilities as yet. So just make sure. But full word to the youth, you can do it too. It's been done before. Oh, go to school. See, when you go to school, you just learn that there's a guy in your class who can do something that you can do better. And I think that's a very vital learning curve for most creatives, to understand that there's people who do it better. So then your selling point is no longer that I'm the best. Your selling point becomes I'm more punctual. I can deliver on time. I know how to brand it. I know how to make it expensive. I know how to make it look better. So just allow yourself to understand that this thing is bigger than you. But my real word to the youth is don't stop, don't fall. Shout out to the Sneaker Coast fans. Thank you for featuring me on this Here and Now podcast. Pinch me. Pinch me. This was beautiful. You're a special kid. I hope you do more podcasting. I hope you show us all the things you're about to do. But all in all, thank you for joining me. Cnr Juta De Beer, a real special edition. 101. The one of one, umsindisi wesiko Mvelisi Nqanga. Uyena him sithanda ukubonga bonke osisi abasinika ukiss bahamba noma intombi zicela ukiss hamba noma uyena yedwa, signing out. Bless. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. Yonke lento eshiwo ngesiLungu.